everyone. Welcome to Wonderful Wednesday. It's Wednesday again. And it's Don Andrews here with the host, and the hostess is Leslie Schneider. Wave, Leslie.
Hello,
She
everybody.
she continues to smile even though she resides in the worst state in the country. However, we're not far behind in the Pacific
Yes.
Northwest, coming in with a tight second and third. I think the only reason we're not worse is we just don't have the population, right?
Yeah, probably. That's
Yeah,
probably why. Yeah.
yeah, we have the crazy at the extreme, but Portland's only a fraction of the size of Los Angeles. So there you go. But hey, at the rate that California is going, though, pretty soon it will be the same size as Oregon because everybody's leaving.
Yeah. Keep adding illegals and homeless people, and I guess if you count all the multiple personalities of the drug addicts, I mean, maybe our population is growing.
Well, that's true. That's true. I mean, hey, we could always use a few more axe wielding, like naked guys wandering around downtown Portland. That really helps with tourism. In
Well,
any case,
we've got a guy on our North County, California beaches who is well, there's two people actually. I only knew about the one, but then my daughter was telling me about this other guy. So he wears a nude colored Speedo bathing suit.
okay.
He's an older gentleman, white hair, kind of long white hair, and he walks around in nothing but this nude colored Speedo. And he strolls. I mean, he is like,
I'm the man.
I see you, and he's like, there is no shame in that guy. And then, so there's that. And then, but, although he's harmless. And then my daughter was telling me she was at the beach the other day and there was a guy there wearing a sock.
A sock?
On
I
his
hate
foot.
to ask, was it on his foot?
It
Okay.
was
no more questions.
one tube sock.
You can't make it up. See, this is why in the 17th century they had the stockades where they just put guys' hands and faces in there and just throw tomatoes on them. Right?
Yeah, you throw
That's only
exactly.
true.
Throw rotten fruit and old smushy veggies. Yeah, shame. Yeah, there's no shame. No shame, Don.
Well, I gotta say, I don't have anything. There was a guy in Seattle who was riding around on a unicycle, like with his Speedo on, like one of those really tall unicycles, like you see in the circus,
Oh yeah.
right through downtown. And you're like, I mean, what are you gonna do? And the thing that's so hilarious about it is not so much that would be the case in Seattle. What's amazing is like he didn't get anybody's attention. Nobody even looked at him. It's like you got to do better than that to freak people out in Seattle. Same with Portland. There was some guy who was downtown, like wielding a machete, and he's naked walking through the park. People just walk by, like, whatever. It's like, I don't know what you have to do. Two naked, like fentanyl addicts were wrestling in front of like a Starbucks. This is a couple of years ago. There's a video. People just walked around them, like, just kept walking, like that's something you see every day.
Whoa.
So, hey, at least they weren't violent to the rest of us.
Yeah, I know. That's like, ugh. But
yeah, it's pretty
anyway.
bad. But on to Cali. So what's new in Cali? I hear your governor's got something going on there that's got him kind of occupied.
Yeah. So I mean, Newsom is always, he's kind of like a little, kind of not. He's definitely a media whore. I mean, he loves the limelight. He wants to be out in front. And and his big thing is, his big shtick lately is, I'm the biggest thorn in the side of Donald Trump. That's like, I'm the one standing up to Trump. And so the latest thing that he's got going on is that he's announced, I think it was yesterday, he announced that the DOJ is investigating him and his wife, who he calls his first partner. Mm-hmm. And he went on for like 6 minutes talking about this investigation. But he never actually said what he's being investigated for. He did bring it up, like, you may be wondering what I'm being investigated for. But then the response to his own question was, you're going to need to talk to the DOJ about that. But he says that people have been, people have been investigating him. They've been knocking on the doors of his friends and neighbors and his family members. Well, we know that one of his campaign manager was just sentenced, right, for lying and for. We also know that and embezzling. We also know that very recently Newsom has gotten into. He actually had to pay like a $30,000 fine to the FPCC, which is the Fair Political FPPC, Fair Political Practices Commission, because he hadn't filed reports on a timely basis. Well, then apparently there's also this other way of raising money that until recently has been in the dark, but it has now been required to be reported on. And I don't know if it's just California, if it's other states too, but here's how it goes. So I'm a highly powerful politician, and I want to solicit donations from people. And so just as a real life example, I'm a casino tribe, and I'm in a disagreement with another casino tribe in California, and there's a case that's going up for some sort of legislative decision making. And the one casino tribe donated like $1.8 million to a nonprofit of Newsom's choice.
Okay.
And next thing you know, that casino tribe gets things turned into their way. So legislation moves in their direction. And so they are the victor in that situation. So there's this whole practice going on. And tell me if you've heard about this. I hadn't heard about it, but I
haven't.
Dig into. But politicians will get large corporations or wealthy individuals, business people, to donate to a charity of their choice. And so many times in Newsom's case, the charities have been one of the charities that his first partner, because he doesn't call her his wife, his first partner or a member of his family has started. So you donate to the charity, and then the charity then siphons the money into another place, and then it ends up in the first partner's pocket.
I did catch that part of it. Right.
Okay, so there's a whole bunch of this, millions and millions of dollars that are now coming to light that are all tied to Newsom or his wife. And I mean, like in one case, she got like $3.5 million. So the DOJ is investigating corruption, fraud, bribery, right? I mean, this is, just because it's legal doesn't mean it's not real, right? There's so many things legal and that isn't right. This should never be legal, right? Like, I mean, we can go on and on and on about all the congressional benefits and all these things that just don't make any sense. So this is like a really, really big deal. And so there's speculation that the reason why Newsom is talking now is because there are people in his inner circle who have flipped and are kind of singing. And so the DOJ actually is going to come down with something substantive before his potential bid for president,
Yeah, none of this surprises me. I mean, and I'm sure, of course, there's a whole strategy around the timing of it and that sort of thing. But the thing is, the party has become so dirty. I mean, from top to bottom, it's just, well, look what just happened with the election in LA. It's like just filthy. And as painful as it is, this is just, I think, a process that these one-party states are just going to have to go through.
Well, I just feel like, I mean, I just don't know, as somebody on the ground, as a voter, I mean, I just feel numb to it. I've spent a lot of time being upset and trying to, donate to the cause, but I see how it is a very, very real component to every type of overthrow of a government, the demoralization phase.
Yeah, right.
So right, it's not just the fear and the terror, right? But it's the demoralization of the people so that they become compliant.
Yeah, well, what happens is the regular citizen who's doing what they're supposed to do, you're raising your taxes, you're obeying the laws, and when the government starts basically stealing from you and then giving the money to people who break the law and make life more miserable for you, eventually several things start happening. You stop working as hard, or you leave, or you take your investment somewhere else. And either way, that causes the problem to be worse because it reduces the available tax revenue, which means that to increase the rate on the people who are left, which makes them more upset because now I'm making more money. I'm taking home less money and I'm getting less in return. I'm getting more potholes. I'm getting more crime. I'm getting less protection. You know, on and on, right? Which increases the pressure to leave. So eventually, and of course attracts more people who will mooch on the system, and that's where at some point it has to reach a collapse phase. Who knows where or when that is? Um, the the thing that's so deplorable about what's happening in the places like California is they've cheated the election system so badly that it's hard to tell where the regular citizen is. I mean, they're out there hustling homeless people
Yeah.
to vote,
Yeah.
for example, with no ID or anything. So we really don't. It's very difficult to tell what percentage of the population is voting for this stuff.
Well, and you're supposed to be, I mean, you can't go out and solicit a homeless drug addict vote. I mean, you're supposed to be of sound mind, right? I mean, for goodness sakes, like you and you're not supposed to be paying for votes either, right? And they've got these people out there saying, "Yeah, I got paid $2, $5, $4, whatever."
With no ID either, so you don't even know if they're a resident.
No, and they're
or a
not.
citizen.
Resident where? Resident on the lawn? Like, where are you a resident? But in most cases, they're not. They were never Californians because our homeless population is higher than any other state in the union. So they are flooding in from all these other places. This isn't some family who, just fell down on their luck, lost their job and wound up on the, sleeping in a van down by the river. I mean, these are people that have been shipped in or have been encouraged to come in because they get free needles, free clean needles, and they get a phone or whatever they get, all sorts of stuff.
I think the silver lining to all of this, if there is one, is that this has become very obvious to anyone looking with even a halfway objective mind that in California, for sure, LA for sure, it's wrong. I mean, the rest of the country is looking at this. Yeah, there's 25 or 30% of the population that can't be helped. They're progressives and but the rest, the other 65 or 70% are thinking this is like horrendous. We can't allow this to happen in our state. And so I think there's a silver lining, and I think there'll be increased motivation to fix it in California, even though it's going to require overcoming some monster hurdles to do so.
I don't know, Don. I mean, I really don't think that we can fix it ourselves. I think unless there is some sort of like violent uprising, because the California politicians are so brazen and it is so locked in. I mean, there is nobody to speak up for a conservative. Nobody. So you have to have some sort of external power who flips things over. I mean, and I don't, I'm not digging into it, all the election integrity, initiatives that are out there. I know that Carl DeMaio is trying to gather signatures in order to get some form of like voter ID. But again, I mean, it's like, how are we going to ensure that the people that the entire system that just cheated Spencer and, even Steve Hilton, I mean, there's no way that Chad Bianco came so far behind, like was so far behind Steve Hilton.
Right.
There's no way that Xavier Becerra and, what's his face, Steyer. There's no way that Steyer got the number of votes. I mean, it's just.
Well, none of us will doubt for a second that they will do some massive cheat of the governor's race Two. What's shocking about the LA one is that they're so brazen that they won't even wait for the the regular election to do it. You'd have thought they'd at least tried to have a cover and let's let it be a two-person race, and then we'll cheat then. They wanted to make sure. I mean, they cheated before it even got to the finals. But that's where they are in LA and in California. And I don't know. I used to think about, and it's been a while since I've researched this, but if you go back to the Lincoln administration, and and there were states that obviously were states that were out of control. They left the union, so clearly they were out of control. And and he just got to a point where basically, you send in federal troops and you just like ignore the courts. At the end of the day, the executive branch is supreme, and you just take the apparatus over. Now that sounds pretty extreme, but if you have a situation where the citizens of California literally aren't being represented because because the politicians in the area aren't enforcing the law, um, and the state's out of control, federal law trumps state law. That's why we had a civil war. Maybe at some point it comes to that. I think we've been doing everything we could to avoid that. You look at all the ICE protests that were going on. This is the other thing I somewhat suspect, by the way, is that if the midterms go the right way and Republicans control the House and the Senate, then we're going to see some really aggressive ICE action then. Not just throwing out people who are criminals, but people who are here illegal are gone, which is a great segue to talk about Ireland in a second. But I do think that's what's going to happen. And that's one of the biggest reasons we need to win the midterms is because once that's done, and we're not having to worry about midterms anymore, hey, let's just get after it. You have your mandate,
Yeah.
and you make this stuff law too. So it's no longer executive order. Is make this stuff law.
Yeah. Well, if we could get our Republican Congress to actually back up the president, then that would be great.
And kind of the good news there, they've seen the results of what happens to those congressmen who are rhinos that don't. A whole bunch of them got kicked out of office this last go round. People are noticing that. It's either fall in line or get primaried.
Yeah.
One of my new favorite terms. So,
And you know what? And I'm in favor. I mean, I feel like there's these Republicans out there that are going out and saying well, and Democrats too, of course, this is political backlash. This is Trump taking out his political opponents. These are people who they're Republicans, they're conservatives, but they're just not sycophants of Trump, and so they're suffering because they dare to have a voice. They dare to decide, to have a different opinion, right, than Trump. And, my response to that is people voted for Trump's ideas.
right.
So you need to stop coming up with your ideas. We want those ideas. And it's like, you can be part of the discussion, but at the end of it, it needs to look like a Trump win.
Yeah. Plus, hey, Trump's not kicking these people out. The people in their districts are kicking them out. I mean, Trump doesn't do anything except pointing out that you're not following, you're not on board.
Well, he's primarying. I mean, he's endorsing candidates. I mean, you're right.
Right.
If people in the district said like, well, yeah, we don't want you, then okay, that would be fine. But
they're
I think-
assigning him this power that he doesn't have. If you can persuade your electorate that what you did was like justified, then you get to stay in office. If you don't, you just get primaried. Tough
Right.
noogies.
Yeah. So what do you think of Plattner? What do you think of Plattner?
Yeah, it is. I think a couple of things as a conservative we have to recognize. Maine is a really liberal state, and they do have a Republican senator, but she is about as to call her middle of the road is probably a stretch, but she has to be. She's about as right wing as you can get and be a senator in Maine. So I think you have to keep that as background. Having said that, they are putting a guy up to run against her who has absolutely no ethics at all. I mean, like none. Can you imagine if a Republican was running around with a Nazi tattoo on his chest and then flaunting it? The
It's
whole
not.
thing is so tacky too. I mean, what grown man runs around with their shirt off showing it to people?
It's not just a Nazi tattoo. It's not a swastika. It's like a prison guard tattoo.
Yeah, it's like the Wehrmacht or something.
Yeah, yeah, Wehrmacht. Yeah, the Wehrmacht is yeah. I mean, these were there were plenty of people in the Nazi Party that were forced in, right? Or they were just idealists. They were stupid, right? They were but this is a guy who actually wears the sign of people actively committing murder, people starving other people. I mean,
And then there's how about the parade of women that keep coming out of the woodwork too? I mean,
well, and the one woman who said that he put his hands on her.
right? Yeah, it's like for the party that's supposed to be all about protecting women and minorities and all this, and you're supporting this guy.
What about Me Too?
Right, right. I guess that goes back to that the party has no principles. They don't. Their only principle is we'll say and do whatever we think it takes to win. And they think a person like this is their best opportunity to win. It is mind-numbing to me. I will say this: if you're willing to throw a bunch of money in that they don't have much of, by the way, to support a guy like that, then you go right ahead and do it.
I mean, maybe this is a blessing, you know. I mean, as shocking as it is, I mean, they could have voted for the governor, like the current, was it the governor who pulled out, who's a Democrat who like couldn't get enough money, and Plattner was pulling ahead, and so she pulled away.
Yeah, I can't remember details. Yes, but I think that next person, she was only polling at like 16% or something, which I think is what had the party in a conundrum. But nonetheless, you say so much about yourself when you support someone with this much. It's not just a little bit of baggage. It's not just one woman saying something or two women saying something or only the tattoo thing. It's like a whole bunch of stuff.
Well, and that platform that he was on, Sidekick or something like that, which is like this kiddie porn. It's
yeah.
I mean, it's just like
and the thing is, it's kind of like I don't know if you remember when Clinton was in all that trouble back in the day, and they called him the next bimbo eruption. So you're waiting for the next eruption. What's next? Something else is coming.
Yeah.
What's going to come up in August and September?
Oh yeah, yeah.
That you got to worry about with this guy.
I mean, So I mean, I guess it's a gift to Susan Collins. I mean, she doesn't really have to do anything.
All she's got to do is just be, and she's a decent human being by all accounts. Just continue to be a decent human being and run on the key issues, on the 80, 90, 10 issues that we have, and you're fine.
Yeah. I mean, she's definitely not the kind of Republican that you and I would ever vote for.
No.
Right? She voted against the SAVE Act, right? She's not our kind of Republican. She's not a conservative, right?
She's in Maine
for the Dems.
Yeah.
So between Collins and, I mean, how in the world are these Democrats gonna vote, like, when it actually, the rubber hits the road and everyone's watching? How are they going to vote for that guy? And he's on like a bunch of his wife was saying something about how, he's in therapy, he's dealing with, all sorts of, I guess, PTSD or trauma from when he was in the service. So he's dealing with that. And then they're going to marriage therapy. And then she's going to therapy, and Megyn Kelly was like, so when is he going to have time to do anything in Congress?
Right.
He's in therapy all the time between texting his girlfriends and in therapy, Well,
see, that's the virtue signaling, though, that the radical left loves, the progressive left loves. Oh, I'm always in therapy. And, oh, I'm a man who has feelings like a woman. I mean, that's what sells that quadrant. So they keep selling that quadrant of the population. But the fact of the matter is, as a percentage of the total population, there are just not that many. You look at the country's basically divided into thirds: third Republican, a third Democrat, a third independents, right? Of that third that are Democrat, maybe a third of them are nuts. The radical, complete radicals. I think what happens here is a significant portion of the Democrats just stay home in Maine. I mean, what's to be enthusiastic about when you have a candidate like this?
It's
You know?
embarrassing.
I mean, the women are going to stay home.
Embarrassing.
He has to vote for this guy, you
Yeah.
know, I,
Yeah. I
for
don't know.
one. So, yeah, I think it's going to be a pretty easy win for her. Never. It's dangerous to be a prognosticator, but I think Susan Collins is gonna cruise in Maine. And I think the party's nuts for pouring their money into that. I know they're desperate to pick up a Senate seat, but I don't think that's the one. And I can't think of one that is the one actually, because you got a guy in Texas who's just as crazy. Um, I can't think of his name, but he's the
Oh,
man. Yeah, the guy. I can't think of his name. But
he's a pastor.
yes,
Yeah. Something.
yeah, he's said some things that are just cringeworthy. Um, uh, yeah, what can you say? That's
Yeah.
what they put up. It's just unserious. They're not talking about the issues of the day, the things that really matter. It's all this fluff stuff. Like for example, in the guy in Maine, we should be talking about the things that really matter. Tax policy, that sort of thing. And instead, we're talking about tattoos and when the next bimbo eruption is going to come up.
Right. Right.
That's that's what you got on the left. That's what you got on the left.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Well, um, all right, let's talk about
Ireland,
yeah,
Ireland.
yeah, yeah. So I'm not digging into it as much as I wanted to. But Ireland has been explosive for a while. They've been protesting, they've been gathering, they've been hollering, and it's not getting them where they need to be. And so they have taken to the streets and they are kind of weaponizing. And there are a bunch of influencers out there who have started these channels and they're in Belfast, and they're like, if you're willing and able-bodied, um, get over here. We need you. If you're English, if you're Irish, if you're North or South, we don't care. This is a united Ireland, effort. We need you here. We need to go get back to our roots and take our country back, because protesting and waving flags and writing letters is not working. And they are starting fires. They're arming. I mean, it's a revolution. It's a
So,
civil war.
and if I recall, is Ireland one of these countries? And I'm guessing they got the wide open borders, so they're elites. Their government leadership have left the borders wide open. They got a ton of people from cultures that just don't work.
Yeah.
They got the rape gangs going on and the
Yep.
crime out of control, and
Yep.
the citizenry has had enough. Have I
Yep.
accurately depicted it?
Yeah. Yeah. There was an interview. Is it you? Not Ewan McGregor. Who's the guy? Who's
The boxer.
well, he's like he's a fighter, but he's like Dana White. What is that? They just had the MMA.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Or UFC, whatever. They
Mhm.
just so he yeah. So is his name Ewan McGregor?
It's McGregor. I don't think it's Ewan though.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
anyway, he is trying to run for governor.
Mhm.
And I heard an interview with him several months ago. He was not allowed on the ballot. And the reason he wasn't being allowed on the ballot is because there's some government official that has to sign off on it,
Mhm.
and they won't sign off on it.
Mhm.
So here he is, a citizen of his country. He's like, we have these rules in Ireland, for instance, where if you're an illegal, you automatically get a car.
Mhm.
You get all of your permits, your licenses, registrations. That's all paid for.
Mhm.
If your car breaks down, there's a fund for that. If you're a citizen and you haven't bought the registration, if you haven't bought access to like park on a certain street, you can get your car impounded.
Mhm.
If you're driving around and you get a ticket, it could be hundreds and hundreds of dollars that you might not be able to pay. If you're illegal, all of that's washed away.
Yeah.
So there, I mean, it's like the most basic freedoms and levels of fairness just don't exist over there anymore. And, you know, I mean, Ireland is a country of hardworking, scrappy. These are not spoiled people. You know, this is not France. You know, this is not a country that, you know, has a tremendous amount of wealth and aristocracy, and you know, and I mean, they've got some good businesses. You know, I mean, I know that they've got really good businesses over there, but this is a hardworking people, and
they've got a history of fighting the British too. So they're used to scrapping all the time. Well, I tell you, this I've thought for a long time is the ultimate strategy of the Davos crowd. I'll call it the radical left, to basically bring in enough of groups where the culture doesn't fit to cause a complete collapse in the government, so they can come in and impose one party rule, essentially communistic dictatorship, and then they run everything. That is the long-term strategy, I am convinced, of those at the very top. Now, the evil minions who like run for office and do these things, and they're just doing things they're immoral people who are doing things that serve their own self-best interest, their career path, their career. And this would be the guy, a policeman who comes to your door and kicks it down because you said something, you wrote something in the media they didn't disapprove of, and this person's so immoral that they'll enforce a wrong law. And you see that in these countries that are run by these leftists. We saw it in Canada when the COVID thing was going down, and they would send these people to the door of the church to, like, you know, arrest the pastor because he had the nerves to run a church service, you know, in the middle of the COVID crisis, when at the same time they're allowing protesters to gather in like massive groups, but churches can't be open, right? So you've got these minions who work in these places who I'm just doing my job, just like the SS in Germany. We were just doing our job, right? You know, and unfortunately for these citizens of these other countries, thank God we have a Second Amendment. They don't have that. And a lot of those countries, the citizens don't have a tradition of fighting back to the government. And I think one of these things, in fact, this is one of these things I've been researching, is they have a tradition of being in monarchies where they're viewed as subjects. Mm-hmm. And they've had that for like 1,000, 2,000 years. And these same countries have, people have titles, dukes and duchesses and viscounts and all this other stuff, and you call them my lord and liege and all that. They have that here. Those are the things that the original pilgrims ran away from. They came here to get away from that form of serfdom, is really what it was. That's why, to the American ear, to hear people like to bow down to someone else, or to take a knee to a king or a queen, or call somebody my lord or any of that, to us, that's like cringeworthy. But in Europe, that's like normal. So for them, it's very hard for them to pick up arms and go against their government because they've been raised to be subjects. Whereas here, we're raised to be citizens. You know, we govern ourselves. No, you don't tell us what to do. In fact, you work for us. So hats off to the Irish. I hope it's too bad it's come to that. But I'm not surprised one bit that sort of thing doesn't start happening. Like, you look at Great Britain, it's starting to happen there. You look at France, they did the same thing to Marie Le Pen that they did to the boxer in Ireland. They made it so she couldn't run. They arrested her, I think, but they took her off the ballot and made sure she couldn't run. That's the strategy of the left. They tried to do it to Trump here. Yeah. You remember? They were like, what, 10 or 15 Democrat states to try to take him ballot. And the Supreme Court had to step in. So yeah, they absolutely wanted to do that here. That's the whole reason for having a wide open border, is to flood the place with cultures that don't fit. They wind up on the dole. You basically create an internal civil war. And the only way to fix that is through a dictatorship, which is what they want in the first place. These leftists aren't interested in fixing anything. That's what they say to get you to think they want to change anything. What they want to do is get power. This whole thing is 100% every time about power. And if you go down the list of these leaders in the last century, whether you're talking, whether you're talking Pol Pot in Cambodia, Chairman Mao in China, Enver Hoxha in Albania, Hugo Chavez of Venezuela. All these guys came into office talking about they were going to like fix everything. And what did you have? What did you get? You got murder and starvation and
Yeah.
slavery. Every single one of them. That's what you got. But that's how you sell the change.
Yeah.
We're going to fix it.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I know that, so we were sharing a video about Katie Hopkins, right? And
Yes.
so when she was talking about that man in Belfast who was attacked by an immigrant, I don't know what kind of immigrant it was, and the guy was literally trying to saw off this guy's head. And like, that's not the first time that's happened. That's not the only time that's happened. It's just all of a sudden.
Right.
This guy walking down the street, and the woman who saw it, who witnessed it, she's in the hospital with a psychiatric break. I mean, she's been traumatized so much after seeing this horrific bloody assault. I mean,
yeah. So you can't shoot somebody or stab somebody or hit them in the head with a hammer. We gotta like saw your head off.
But it's like it's the amount of hate, that these people have for the countrymen in whose country they've just invaded. Like we're not taking over your country, right? We're not some warlord that's killed and raped your family, right?
Well, Leslie, come on. It was just one of them. I mean, most of them aren't doing that. The vast majority of them are peaceful. I heard a comedian. This is one of the funniest ones I heard. In fact, she's one of these northeastern. I can't remember which state. Like, has got the complete New Jersey stick, which makes it even funnier, right?
Yeah.
She is really hilarious, and she does this routine. I'm pretty sure it was her, and she says, I got a pit bull. Pit bull's gonna like play in the playground with your kids, right?
Yeah.
And I know that every now and then there's a pit bull out there eat some kid up, but my pit bull is nice. Why are you worried?
Yeah. Most of I've seen this skit where she goes, like she says something like, pit bulls are like Muslims. Like most of the time they're fine. But every once in a while, there's a violent attack. And it's not all the Muslims. Every time there is a violent attack, it's a Muslim. It's a pit bull, right?
Every time. No, as nobody else is cutting people's heads off. I mean, they're just not, and what possible justification could we have to bring a group of immigrants into the country who hate us? It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, it's astounding. And the catering that goes on to these people. And I just, oh my gosh. I don't know. I don't know. So.
Yeah. But the scary thing about that Ireland thing, and I can't remember, and I wish I'd read these guys' names. So there's a few podcasters out there. And I remember telling my wife this a number of years ago. It's amazing the restraint that young white men have shown so far, because the radical left wants, and they've always wanted a race riot. They want a race riot so bad they can taste it. So they keep fueling this stuff, race hatred, whenever they can find it. That's the whole purpose for the CRT, the whole purpose for the DEI, the whole purpose for constantly pumping any incident that happens where they could say it was a white person beating up or hurting a black person. They've been notorious for that. And then comes along this case we just saw, I think it was in Atlanta, where it was a track meet.
Carmelo Anthony.
Yes, that is like, you can't even wrap your heads around something like that. So this kid stabs a kid in the heart. The other kid's not armed. Nobody's armed. Apparently there was a shove or two. Since when does a shove become a stab in the heart as a response, right? And then we saw what happened with the family and all the fallout over that. And all you could think as you look at this, I'm trying to be relatively objective about that, is what kind of a family produces or raises a kid, or what kind of an environment raises a kid who would behave that way? Because at the end of the day, that's what caused this. You don't wake up one day, This guy's been hearing I hate white people his whole life, every day, 24/7. You can bet that. They're the cause of everything wrong in my life. And then you act this out. Um, it's like one of the most appalling things ever. And maybe even more appalling than that was the reaction to the Black community in the area to the event. Now, this is one of the problems with the media. The media would have you believe that every Black person feels that way. Trust me, they don't. But in the, I'll call it the underclass, absolutely, that you'd be willing to defend someone who was 150% wrong is astonishing. And I saw the same thing with the OJ trial. That was one of my most shocking wake up calls ever, because I was around a relatively educated group of people that I worked with who were Black. And to a person, they defended that verdict. And I was like so depressed for a long time before I understood what was really going on there. And it's some people, man, they're unable to separate feeling from objective reality. Now, if there's, and I'll be quiet and say this one last thing, if there's any positive to come out of that, the Carmelo Anthony thing, is apparently that parents have been such gold diggers that people are finding out that these parents were using this kid to like make money. And so now they're all pissed off at the parents, which is the wrong reason. I mean, it's not a great thing. They should be pissed off that this kid did this thing. But at least there's that. They're able to see that these parents just took you people for a ride. They were looking at this as which tells you the lack of morality and ethics of that family. Holy cow.
Well, they raised $600,000 for this guy's defense, for Carmelo's defense. And now that he's been found guilty and he's been given 35 years, he should have been given. Should have been given enough. Yeah. He's been given 35 years. They are vowing to appeal it, but they have filed as indigent, which they have no money to pay for a lawyer after $600,000. The parents did not even show up to the sentencing. When the verdict was read, the parents were not there. This kid had to stand there by himself with his lawyer. And then the victims, the family members, they did their victim statements. Mm-hmm. Dad did it. The twin brother did it. They didn't show up for that either.
Well, that tells you, need I say anything else, right? That's that's the caliber of people who would raise someone who would do something like that.
It makes me think they're like the pit bull owners who take this little creature and push in motivations, push in evil skills, just sort of continue to indoctrinate and create a little hellion, right? This person could have turned out any way. Carmelo could have turned out any way. Mm-hmm. And instead he had these shitty parents who don't care enough about him to even be there when he's now fulfilled what they wanted.
Yeah.
And here he's having to be held responsible. They don't even show up for that.
It's truly too bad that they aren't going to prison also. Because they're just as responsible. The only thing they didn't do is plunge the knife in themselves. They set the environment for this kid to become a monster, and that's what the kid is. And it's it's such a bad. But the next point I was going to make with this though is that if you keep doing that to young white men, and what the press is doing, and constantly making them out to be, and there's a lot of ways they do it. So every movie you see is some woman kicking some white guy in the butt. You turn on a TV commercial, you don't even see any white guys in the commercials anymore, right? And if you do see them in the commercials, then they're stupid, they're dumb, they're ignorant. They're like, what's the TV show? Married with Children kind of characters, right? Oh, you go back 60 or 70 years ago. You had things like, you had shows on where, Leave It to Beaver or
My Three Sons.
My Three Sons, where the dad role, a male role, was a role of authority and goodness and all of those things. And you don't see, now all you see is men mocked, especially white men mocked, they're stupid, they're all of these other things. You're going to eventually get a backlash. And I've just been shocked at the restraint they've shown. I mean, where are the skinheads? I mean, I'm not looking for them, by the way. I'm just shocked they're not there. Apparently, the Irish kids have had enough. Um, and sooner or later, you keep doing this stuff, we're going to get them here. And there are already some guys on the internet. I wish I had written down their names. There's a few out there who are podcasting and they're saying things that aren't, let's say they're not great. You you'll eventually create that, which of course is what the radical left wants. At the top of the food chain, that's what they want anyway.
You have to be so careful. I mean, again, because I'm living behind enemy lines in California, whenever I say things, whenever I, even just like feel something, right? Like, because I'll see something like I was at a indoor football game on Sunday, and we're watching the game. I'd never been to an indoor football game before, and it's summertime, so the cheerleaders are actually kind of the B team cheer from the local high school, right? Like, good for them. They get an opportunity to cheer for, and get some practice, whatever. But one of them is a transgender cheerleader. It's a man, and he's tall, and he's standing right in the front. Who's supposed to stand in the front? Short girls, not some tall transgender dude, right? So here he is, front and center.
Yeah.
Front and frickin' center. Yeah. And
so he wasn't like throwing the girls in the air kind of a cheerleader. He wasn't that guy.
No, he wasn't that guy. Like, I had those cheerleaders, right? They were the strong ones that threw you in the air, and you were like, ooh, like a little pole, No, it was not. And even then I was wondering, I was like, they just want to like stick their hand up girl skirts. That's really what being a male cheerleader is all about. Because you have to get them up there, but I mean,
well,
these girls, no, this is a different breed. And so anyway, so like back to my train of thought. So I'm looking at this guy, and of course my first thought is, like, I'm not a fan. Okay. But then I'm thinking to myself, but this guy, somebody's his mom, somebody's his sister, and maybe they don't like it either, but they love their kid, and they're just trying to embrace what their kid's going through, and they're hoping that he gets through it healthy, right, and intact, emotionally intact in some way. So it's like, I'm trying to think about it that way. But so when it comes to this backlash that you're saying is brewing, I wouldn't be surprised if it's brewing, because I know there's a lot of people out there that are like, I mean, that's why when Obama, was president, there were so many people that bought guns, right? Yeah. Because they could see that our country was going in the wrong direction, and that the authorities were not on our side, right? Mm-hmm. And it's only gotten worse and worse and worse and worse. I just really, really pray that as people start to stand up and start asserting our God-given rights, that are afforded to us as citizens, that terrible things don't end up happening to innocent people. It already has. We've taken it, right? Yeah. But, and obviously if I have to choose, I'm not choosing them. But I do worry about that.
Well, it's a good thing to worry about. I think, again, I'm kind of the optimist in all of this stuff. I think we have to revisit where we were a year or 2 years ago, and then recognize the progress that's been made. It has been tremendous on pretty much every front. That said, there's still a long ways to go. And you also have to look overseas and look at what they're going through. They don't have the leadership that we have here, nor do they have the tradition that we have here. They don't even have a Second Amendment.
Although, did you hear that there was a I'm just going to say a senator, but that's not what her position was, in Japan. And she actually stood up, and they were having a discussion about cremation. I don't know what the discussion was about, but she basically stood up and she said, Muslims are asking to be given land so that they could be buried. The Japanese are a cremation society. We burn the dead. So our own Japanese people are not putting bodies in the ground. Why in the world are we giving land to these people
Well,
of a
my
different culture. And
my
nobody was
understanding,
booing her. Nobody was booing her. I mean,
yeah,
people are waking up.
no, in Japan, they're sending them back. I mean, their prime minister said, "We ain't doing that." You know, and I love her position. Here's the thing, you know, the pressure would be to allow immigrants into Japan because they have one of the lowest replacement rates in the world, right? I mean,
Yeah,
I'm not even sure if they're at one.
yeah,
So they got a pretty desperate situation in the not too distant future in terms of having children. But she herself has said, we're not fixing it with that. You know, we're going to stay Japanese, right? And I think that's exactly the right move. You got to find some other way to fix the problem. We
yeah,
know now for sure immigration from cultures that don't fit ain't the solution.
yeah. I mean,
Just
maybe they just need to start giving massive, massive tax incentives to people who have babies.
well, yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, there's, yeah, you got affordability issues. There's a ton of things, right? You know, there's affordability issues in terms of housing,
Yeah,
that are hurdles. And then there's just when you get down to it too, is just plain culture. And I say we collectively, I mean we in the West, so not just the Japanese, have we worship materialism. So what is the first question that someone asks your kid when they ask you growing up, what college are you going to? Which is an indirect way of saying you're going to go, of course, go to college. You can earn more money because earning more money is the most important thing in life. And it wasn't always like that. 50, 100 years ago, you got out of high school, you got married, and you immediately had kids, and the society celebrated that. And I can remember, you walk down the street with a stroller, people would stop. Oh, what a beautiful baby, wasn't there? Blah, blah, blah. I mean, that was the whole vibe, 50, 60 years ago. Now people look at you like you got an infection or something.
it's
You
true.
have like three kids, and they're like, "Well, what's wrong with you? Don't you know
Yeah,
what birth control is? You don't know how this works." That's
that's right.
literally the mindset. Whereas, 50, 60 years ago, if you didn't have, I remember our neighbor had two kids, and the adults are whispering, something must be wrong. They only have two kids, right?
Yeah, that's it, yeah.
Everybody had four. Everybody had at least four in my neighborhood, and six or seven was no big deal. And so it's a cultural thing that we have to make that the thing to do. Just like 50, 60 years ago, everybody had a cigarette in their mouth, and everybody in Hollywood, cigarette was like the coolest thing in the world. We changed the mindset on that by really changing the culture around whether cigarette smoking is cool. Now even people who smoke will like, no, it's not cool. Um,
They're hiding it.
yeah, the litter bug campaign. I remember, especially in Oregon, they put this anti-litter thing out there, and it was in the culture, embedded in the culture. I can remember being small, and people would roll their window down and just throw trash out the window. I mean, you would see that, right? And then starting in the late '60s, early '70s, there's all this "Keep America Beautiful" campaign, and then it was "Don't Be a Litter Bug," and people talked about it. And I tell you, if you dropped a piece of trash on the ground in Oregon, you were asking for it. I mean, people would call you out, right? I mean, it was pristine here then. And really, it still is from that perspective, except for downtown where the homeless are. Um, so we can change these cultural things. We have to make a collective decision to do so. Here's another one. It was not cool to have babies all over town. I mean, that was definitely not cool when I was a kid. I mean, you did that, oh no, your butt got sent off to be with Aunt Jill down in Louisiana somewhere. That was not happening, right? And if you did that to somebody's daughter, they were showing up with a shotgun. Guess you're getting married, boy, because you are raising this one. So that was the culture then, and illegitimacy rates in 1960, the white illegitimacy rate I think was like it was under 5%. That is kids raised without a dad, and it was under 15% for blacks. Now is 85% for blacks and like 40% for whites.
But Don, it's not because it's socially acceptable. It's because they pay you.
Oh wait, hey, let me give you a quick story on that. So I had some cousins in Southern Cal. This was remember LBJ was in office when the Great Society started, and they wanted to like roll out these programs to like the welfare program, the Great Society, right? We're going to end poverty. And one of my older cousins, my mom's cousin, she's like 20, 25 years older than me. He said, Don, I remember after the Watts riots, they were going door to door, and he himself, I'm sure they were raised Democrats, so this wasn't a political discussion. He's just telling me they were knocking on doors trying to get you to get on welfare. He said, man, we ran them cats out of here with sticks. You ain't getting me on no welfare. But the Democrat Party went door to door to put people on welfare in black neighborhoods. And eventually they succeeded.
Yeah.
That
Right.
was LBJ's decision to buy votes. And that's what they did. And I think aside, as terrible as it to sound, I don't know that they strategically thought about destroying the family, at least at that level. Their whole thing was just buying votes. The destruction of the family was just a nice side benefit that they didn't realize.
Well, no, I think they did think about it because they structured the benefit qualifications so that you couldn't be married.
No, you may be right. Yeah, they did that. So they got the guy out of there. And that happened quickly.
Yeah.
Because like I said, I grew up in that time period and I don't remember anybody without a dad.
It's almost like a Margaret Sanger, precursor, right?
Oh.
Like first, let's just destroy the families and see if we can get people to, not have bonds. And then we're going to literally destroy the family, right? We're going to murder children. I mean, it was kind of like the slow roll before the real deal came in.
Yeah. So that's what you have. And then you have a ton of other things that I think flow out of that are just, well, in some ways we're raising. So you think about culture, the culture is a Judeo-Christian culture. That's the culture of the United States. And there are certain things that go along with that. One of them is, have babies all over town.
Yeah.
If we have a subgroup of people doing that here, that's the same as bringing a bunch of illegals that don't share that culture either. So we're creating our own problem, and they're behaving the same way. It's minus cutting off heads, but as we just saw, like the poor Russian gal who got stabbed in the subway in New York, for example.
Ukrainian,
right? So we're creating that that's homegrown stuff there. We don't need to bring it from outside. we need to. That's an easy fix. We can fix the one we already have inside our own house, right? But anyway, well, we cover a lot of ground there. It's already 7:02. Well, we probably should think about signing off. As much fun as this has been. Thank you. I hope you all are having as good a time as we are having as well. And hopefully this stuff is good. It makes good conversation for you to take out and talk to other people in your network, which is really the biggest benefit of this, right? Is really that, to inform yourself so you can have similar conversations. Any closing thoughts on your part?
No, I mean, I hate to close on, kind of a low point, I guess, that we've made, but we didn't touch on the Iran deal, but I think that there's a lot of optimism, going on with that. And I think that we're going to see some better days. I do. I'm not sure what's going to happen in California. But I mean, it can't go. I mean, what are we going to just end up like, in the ocean, sliding off into the ocean, figuratively. But I'm excited to see how people are taking things back. I worry that it's going to be violent, but I think you're right. I think in the United States, people are standing up and realizing this whole Carmelo Anthony thing. I mean, there's a bunch of very, very bad actors. And they're not the only one, right? I mean, there's been some other situations, some other crimes that have happened very recently that kind of mirror that. And I think maybe you're right. Maybe we needed to actually get there for people to open their eyes and go, whoa. I mean, there was something on Instagram where it was like this black father, and he had like 5 or 6 kids with him, and they were all sitting around, just what you're talking about. And and they were responding to this whole, Carmelo Anthony thing and he's like, so how should we be raising our kids? How should we be talking to our kids? How should we be preparing them to go out into society? And, we can make it really complicated, and we can really like dig into all these social issues and structure and history and fairness and blah, blah, blah. And he goes, how about this, guys? How about this? Everybody, let's not stab anybody today. Can we do that? Can we do that? And they're like, yeah, Daddy, we can do that. You know, like, just give it all the basics.
Yeah, it's not complicated. What was that other one? Treat others, doing to others as you would have them doing to you. Basic, rule of human conduct, right? Like just don't do it. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. Anyways, all right, my friend. Well, hey, ever the optimist. Things are headed in the right direction. Great stuff is going to happen. You all have a great week. We'll see you the next wonderful Wednesday, Leslie.
Yeah. Good night, everybody. Thanks for being here.
Good night, everybody. Be